All right, greetings. So, try it from the front of the house to see if it comes in any better. Here's the topic. Why does Amazon allow Hasan Piker? Serious question. I mean, the stuff the guy says is pretty unhinged, problematic, and he never gets called out for it. But anybody who understands business knows if the majority of people out there knew about Hasan Piker, especially when you consider the large amount of Christians that are in America, stuff that he says, do you think they'd shop at Amazon? Because that's the topic, and let's get into it. By the way, Freedomville, like, subscribe, and hey, turn up the video speed. Why do I always say that? Because you should be watching these videos at least at 1.75. That's what I do. But let's get into it. And hey, always sub more and trying to build up a channel. I was just thinking about this, and this thought's occurred to me a number of times. I see the crazy stuff that Hasan says, and it's like, okay, you're for freedom of speech, man. Say whatever you want, have a good time. But freedom of speech versus business, I've noticed how a lot of people, you ever notice how freedom of speech gets curbed when it comes to business? Now, Amazon is a huge business. Now, it's like, is it so big that, maybe Bezos is just like, whatever, let him go off. Is it some form of, whitewashing, except for it's blue washing? Let's call it blue washing, where you have someone saying some, pretty insane socialist things, along with, basically all the Middle Eastern conflict stuff that Hasan says. And that somehow, makes people less likely to look at Jeff Bezos as, successful 1% guy that he is. No, everybody still looks at Bezos as this ridiculously rich guy. And, it's funny about it too. Despite the fact, in fact, you know what? I don't know if I've ever heard Hasan say one thing about the work practices of Amazon, which then gets you thinking for a second. I mean, maybe he has. I don't pay too much attention to him. But the factor is, the only reason I even know about who this guy is because, well, one, other people talk about him, but because I know who his uncle is. And I also know that the Young Turks, for instance, which I love the divine irony of the Young Turks. People that talk about, equality, equity, and all this nonsense, because they don't really believe it. They take money from, that Middle Eastern, was it Al Jazeera? Basically, they're a propagandist arm. This is effectively what they are. And I get it. That's what people do. But the term Young Turks, for instance, well, they were a genocidal part of the Turkish army that committed the Armenian genocide. And that's just somehow, people just look at that and they're like, well, whatever, it was a long time ago. We just thought it was a cool name, blah, blah, blah. Yeah. But I see no shortage of people bringing up, like, for instance, we never stop hearing about the Holocaust. It never stops. So I just find it a little funny that, Hasan Piker, for instance, basically got funded by his uncle who gets money from Al Jazeera. And I mean, more power to you. Run a successful business. And, I gotta be honest, there's been a handful of times I'd say something Shank has said, I was like, well, okay, that's a good take. So it's not all completely bad, but basically you got this extreme Nepo baby. And I think the funniest part about it is that he sits there going on and on about socialism and this radical thing, but like, dude lives in a multi-million-dollar mansion. And I'm not going to fault you for being rich, but you're saying the proletariat, the people need to rise up, blah, 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 eat the rich. You are the rich. And isn't that kind of funny when you think about it? Like, for instance, Marx was a rich kid. How many of the famous communists, in fact, wasn't Mao a rich kid too? How many of these famous communists were basically rich kids? And I've often had the thought that a lot of times the people that are screaming the loudest for communism are rich people that want you to take out other rich people. And so what I'm getting at with that is that maybe the reason that Amazon allows Hasan Piker to continue on is because it's a form of blue washing. Like you talk about greenwashing, call this blue washing. And so, I don't know. Doesn't it seem a little odd to anybody else? Like, and by the way, I would argue Hasan is a really loud voice online, but does anybody really outside of Twitch and, guys like Asmongold, Tech Tone, and a handful of others, does anybody actually, if it wasn't for them talking about him, would anybody even know about Hasan? And the answer is most likely no. Like they've tried to get him out there and say, well, we need our Joe Rogan of the left. Well, I don't know if you know this. That used to be Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan was your guy. He was stumping for Bernie back in the day. So trying to get, use Hasan Piker as that potential, influencer. No, Hasan's not intelligent enough. He's not really that interesting either. I'm just saying. You could probably manufacture somebody, but I'm going to throw this out there as far as it goes for the left. Has it ever occurred to you that maybe the reason that people aren't really resonating with what the left is bringing right now is because it's just unpalatable? I don't care how much you try to dress up, a pig, how much you try to take this turd and coat it in chocolate sauce. Right now, the left just isn't palatable to a lot of people. And ironically, you could argue, normally that's the right. But now that people are starting to see the situation where it's pretty damn obvious a lot of the protests are completely fake. Trying to get a guy like Hasan to be your, voice champion. You want to know who's probably a better fit, but he's already doing it? Bill Maher. Bill Maher, there may be a number of dumb things, and Bill Maher, wishy-washy, whichever way the wind blows, kind of to some degree, depending on the decade, because, that's how you make money. But at least he has some based takes. You can look at the situation, and it doesn't seem like there's some huge massa agenda with Bill Maher. And so what you need is, if you're going to have these people that are figureheads, you need to get rid of the screaming radicals and replace them with people that are more palatable to the average middle of the road person. Look, you're always going to have your extremist on either side. But if you get somebody who's actually, normal, you might have a chance with that. And I bring this back to the whole Amazon thing. And I think the whole reason that Amazon just still hasn't booted Hasan from the situation, the platform, is fairly simple. Most people don't have a clue that Amazon and Twitch are connected. And people say, well, would you stream on Twitch? Probably not. Maybe. Just no. Why? Why? There's other platforms that are far better than Twitch. So, I don't know. I feel like I look at Twitch and it looks like a dying platform to me. And, people say, well, there's all this interaction, but there's no money. And that's a sign of a dying platform. If there's no money in something, ain't nobody going to be there. So, I don't know. It's just a thought. And mind you, there are some major streamers that are on Twitch. But how much of that was they've been there because they've been there for a while? They built up a following there. As where when you look at something as a new thing, and if it doesn't make dollars, it doesn't make sense. So, I don't know. Like I said, I just wonder why Bezos hasn't put the foot down and said, hey, look, you know what? I don't need this guy basically making my company look horrible. I just can't help but wonder. Anyways, just some thoughts. Take it easy.